Good morning. Today is Sunday, the 25th day of Shevat. And we are today learning the last part of chapter 27 in Tanya. On Friday, we were discussing about the issue of how to deal with sinful thoughts, meaning we are talking about mainly focusing on how the fact that we are able to have sinful thought should not interfere in our joy and simcha of Hashem. And we didn't talk specifically about what do we do when we have sinful thoughts. This, the Alter Rebbe talks in a different place. Obviously, there is tools how to deal. The main thing is that we know that we have control of our thoughts, meaning that thinking is something that a person constantly does. You cannot stop thinking. And you cannot control whether to think or not. This is something that happens constantly. You're thinking whether you like it or not. However, you do have control to shift your thoughts into proper places. And this is when you feel up, you arm yourself with tools, with positive thoughts, meaning if you have thoughts of Torah in your mind. So the moment that something comes up on your just a minute, okay, I'll have to pause here, and then just to finish the thought. And the moment you have a negative thought, use what you know in Torah. Use what you know, things that you learned. Shift your thought in a positive way. And then we'll go to the next part. Well, just a minute, I'll be right back. Okay, so let's continue. Again, I'm here in the Chabad of Coral Springs, and they needed me a 10th to answer Baruch Hu. And let's continue. So we said the thought, how to control, that's not what we're talking in this chapter. How to control the thoughts that the Rebbe speaks elsewhere. Here we're talking about the fact that you have evil thought coming to you. You feel bad about it. You feel that you're trying all your life and it doesn't help. You keep having those thoughts. So as the Alter Rebbe explained, as we explained on Friday, that you shouldn't feel bad about it. On the contrary, you should realize that just as there is a mitzvah to put on tefillin, there's a mitzvah you connect to God by doing positive things, you also connect to God by avoiding doing negative things. So each and every time you have an opportunity to do something and you don't do it, you have an opportunity, a thought comes to your mind and you push it away, you just sacrificed something. And you just brought about a great godly revelation in you, in the world, and so on. And yesterday, yesterday's shiur, the shiur of Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe continued and explained the fact that there's really indeed great, tremendous joy to Hashem and tremendous revelation of God's light by sacrificing the evil inclination, by subjugating your evil inclination. Because there are two types of delicacies that God has, so to speak. And he's using the metaphor of delicacies. There are sweet delicacies and there's spicy delicacies. Sweet delicacies represent the worship, the service of the tzaddikim. Like sweet is something beautiful, is something tasty. There's no challenges there. The palate loves it. Most people love the sweet. And there's no challenge there. This is the worship of tzaddikim, a person that has no evil inclination at all. A person who overcame his evil inclination and put them down, and he does not have any desires to do bad. That is a tzaddikim. And there is the second delicacy, and that is the spicy. The spicy is challenging to the palate. The spicy also can take something which is bitter and turn it into something good. Take an olive, for example. An olive grows, and the olive is bitter. And you're taking the olive and you spice it up properly, and you marinate it properly, and the olive all of a sudden becomes something that brings out the potential of the olive. The same thing, says the Alter Rebbe, is the sacrifice that our Beinani does, a person who has the challenges, he has the evil inclination, and yet he overcomes his challenges, and he pushes, and he sacrifices to Hashem. This is a greater revelation of godliness and a greater joy than the work of the tzaddikim, in a sense. In today's class, the Alter Rebbe continues to the next step. And he says, the challenges that we have, when we bring down the evil inclination, is not only when we talk about things that are prohibited, like eating something not kosher and you break yourself, talking something, seeing something which is not okay, and thinking something which is not okay. Those are things which we sacrifice a Yetzer Hara. There is a further sacrificing the Yetzer Hara is when you do it with things that you are permitted to do. Kosher food, and it brings the example of the sages that they used to push off their breakfast with 2 hours. And it's not that they wanted to gain more time to study Torah, because they would study Torah anyway. The question is, when would they eat? They wanted to eat, and it's kosher food. Everything is okay. But they pushed it off nevertheless. Why? Because here they have their own want, their own desire. And this is what they wanted to sacrifice a little bit, push it off a little bit. Every time a person does that, says the Alter Rebbe, as we'll soon see inside, every time a person does that, it creates a tremendous, tremendous light and a tremendous kedusha, holiness and purity in the person and in the world. And this is, in a sense, even more so than subjugating the evil by prohibited things. Because here is something that you're allowed to do. You're allowed to eat this food. You're allowed to talk this talk. You're allowed to think. If you want to watch some news, and you say to yourself, I'm going to push it off 5 minutes. This 5 minutes that you push off watching the news because you wanted to have it, and you pushed it off for 5 minutes, you just sacrificed something, and you just created something tremendous. And this is what Alter Rebbe is going to talk in today's shir. Let's look inside. There's the Alter Rebbe, V'loi oid. Furthermore, not only fighting his evil thoughts does one subdue the sitra achra, but even in matters that are fully permissible. El afilu b'dvorim hamotorim legamri. Kol ma she'odam zeiveach yitzroi. Every time a person sacrifices his yetzer hara, his impulse, afilu shokalo, even for a short while, even only for a short while. And it's important to notice, it is when you do it, you have in mind that you do it to subjugate, to subdue the sitra achra, the evil inclination. Because some people will say, some people will say, I want to sacrifice because I want to lose weight. This is fine. But this is not what we're talking about. We're going to take another break. I'll be right back because they need us for Kedusha. So we continue with the Alter Rebbe says. It says every time a person does and sacrifices, even for one moment, it creates, but when he does that, he has in mind that he's doing, the intention is subduing the Yetzer Hara, the Sitra Achra Kegoin, for example, Shechofetz Lechoil, that he wants to eat. And he pushes off the meal for an hour or less. And then during that time, he studies Torah. If you push it off and you're doing some other selfish things, that doesn't help, that doesn't work. But you got to learn Torah in the time you're doing something positive, in the time that you push off your meal. As it says in the Gemara, it says the 4th hour of the day starting from sunrise, the 4th hour after sunrise is the time when most people eat, when all men eat. Well, the 6th hour is the time when the scholars, the mealtime of the scholars, because they would go hungry for 2 hours for this intention. And it's not that they wanted to gain some more time to study Torah, because they would study Torah before and they would study Torah after. As the Alter Rebbe says, although even after the meal they would study all day. So that, but what were they doing it for? What reason? Is to subdue the Yetzer Hara. Another example the Alter Rebbe brings. Also, similarly, if one restrains his mouth from saying things which he greatly desires to say concerning mundane matters, want to talk things, we're not talking about things that is forbidden to talk, lashon hara or other things. We're talking about permissible things. Want to talk politics, but you push it off. You have a desire to talk and you push it off. Which in a sense, this is something more applicable to us today, because today to go hungry is not such a healthy thing. And obviously a person should not do anything which affects the health. We got to be healthy. But talking things which is you hold back from talking, that is a good thing. Even if you hold it back for 5 minutes. Likewise, also regarding the thoughts of his mind. Even by the slightest subjugation of the Sitra Achra, the Skafi Sitra Achra Lesata. By the slightest thing, if you do a slight thing to subjugate the Sitra Achra down here in this world, the glory of God and His holiness is greatly elevated on high. And this is something, an expression Alter Rebbe says here regarding permissible thing, that the glory of Hashem is elevated on high much more. This is an expression that he doesn't say by prohibited things, only by permissible things. When you do this, it creates a greater revelation of Hashem. And from this holiness, a sublime holiness issues forth upon man below. To give him an extra powerful aid in the service of Hashem. That when you sanctify yourself a little bit, Hashem gives you the kedusha, the holiness, to be able to go further. This is what we do also in the bris that we're going to shortly. I'm going to go to the bris of my Einikel Be'ezras Hashem. I have the honor, privilege to be sandik, to hold a baby. And in a bris, what do? It's something which is a little painful. That's how you enter the Jewish life. That you're doing a little discomfort to you. This is the idea of coming to this world to subjugate the evil inclination. This is what our sages say, this is what our sages meant when they said, if a man consecrates himself in a small measure here below, he is sanctified greatly from above. You do a little bit here, Hashem gives you a lot of holiness from above. This is apart from the fact that when one sanctifies himself in permissible matters, he thereby fulfills a positive commandment from the Torah. The Torah says, there's a verse in the Torah that says, that you should sanctify yourself. So this is a positive commandment in the Torah. And when do you fulfill this commandment? When one sanctifies himself the things but impermissible matters. The meaning of sanctify yourself is you shall make yourself holy. What does it mean, holy? That is to say that although in truth one is not holy and separated from the sitra achra. By nature, we are born human beings with evil inclination. We have desires to material things. Because the sitra achra of his animal soul is still as at birth, at its full strength and might in the left part of his heart. Meaning that the evil inclination is constantly there, it doesn't go away. However, yet, even while at this level, he subdues and masters his evil impulse and makes himself holy, which means separated from the sitra achra. And then continues the verse, V'yisem kedoshim, you will be holy. In this verse, it seems like it's a redundancy. It says, V'yis kadishtem, you should sanctify yourself. V'yisem kedoshim, you shall be holy. It seems like it's redundant. The Alter Rebbe explains here that it's not redundancy. It says, V'yis kadishtem, you should sanctify yourself. Then V'yisem kedoshim, you will be holy. It is like Hashem is telling you, when you do your part, I will make sure you are holy. I will give my part that will elevate you and separate you. Keloima, which means to say, that ultimately he will be truly holy and removed from the evil other side, the sitra achra. Through his being greatly sanctified from above, as quoted earlier, and through his being aided from above to expel the sitra achra from his heart little by little, step by step. That little by little, when a person sanctifies himself, he's able to overcome, and he gets more strength from above to further go in higher places. So what do we take from here? The lesson, again, is that even in permissible things, we do our part. When it comes to watching their favorite show, obviously you got to make sure, first of all, if the show is a kosher show, something which is permissible according to Torah, it doesn't involve things which the Torah prohibits. But even if it's a kosher show, even if it's a good thing, and we say to ourselves, I want to watch it now, but I'm going to push it off for 10 minutes. I watch it 10 minutes later. That itself is a tremendous sacrifice, and that itself creates an opportunity for you to become holy, and Hashem gives you more holiness to be able to go to the next level and the next level. And this is how we do it, step by step, little by little, yidel by yidel will bring Mashiach. Thank you so much for joining today. Sorry for the few interruptions we have in the between, but it was for a good cause. So may Hashem help. We should only share with simchas, only happiness and joy, and continue to be holy and make the world holy and bring Mashiach. Thank you so much. Any questions we can take now?